Hey there. Welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 227. I'm Mike. This is Casey. Hi, Casey. And the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is I'm going to be continuing the countdown to my best of 2022. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining this to you. Seems like it should be pretty self-explanatory. Plus, this is episode 4 in a series of videos that I've been doing, where I've been taking every action figure that I bought this year, placing it here on my desk, eliminating figures that I don't think will make my best of the year list. And so hopefully after I've completed this series of 6 videos, I'll be left with approximately, if I keep about 10 figures from each video, I'll have about 60 figures left, which will be my best of the year, and I'm going to whittle that down to my top 20 of 2022. So I hope you enjoy sitting here watching me eliminate figures and hearing my justifications for why. I don't know if there's much more to say. One thing I guess I will mention, as I've been going through these videos, I am sharing with you every figure that I've bought this year. So there are a couple of figures that technically were released in 2021, therefore they wouldn't qualify for my list. But I'm still including them here, and I'm just taking them out and telling you that these are figures from the prior year. There were a couple of other figures that I did buy this year that were even older than a year, and I didn't bother including them because usually when I buy, say, like a vintage figure that's like several years old, I don't have those figures on display. So I buy them and then they end up going into a storage bin in my spare room, and I didn't really feel like digging out those figures from storage just to simply tell you that they don't qualify for the list. So I'm just going to show you a couple of them quickly here as a split screen. I think there's only 4 or 5 figures that I bought this year, but yeah, some of them are like 10 years old or more, and so obviously they wouldn't qualify for this list. Where are you going? Come on. But anyway, I just felt if I'm going to be, if these videos are going to be representing everything I bought this year, I just kind of wanted to make sure that I mentioned them so that these videos were fully inclusive of all the action figures that I bought this year. So anyway, we'll get to that now. We'll take a look at these figures. So I'll see you again at the end of the video. Say goodbye, Casey. So here's another set of figures. Let's start eliminating. So as usual, we'll start down here with the reaction figures. As you can see, I've got a whole bunch of G.I. Joes down here. Now, I'm going to start with this Snake Eyes. This is actually the first Snake Eyes reaction figure, and he actually came out in Wave 1, which was released in 2021. I got the rest of that wave in 2021, but for some reason, it took me a little bit longer to get Snake Eyes. I didn't get him until, I think, January of this year. But because he wasn't released in 2022, he is eliminated automatically. Now, I do have other Snake Eyes figures. They are just repaints of that figure that came out this year. So there is the glow-in-the-dark Snake Eyes, green and yellow. He looks pretty cool. These glow-in-the-dark figures are pretty fun. But, yeah, they're not Toy of the Year. At least that one isn't. I really like the blue and silver one. This was a Target exclusive that my brother down in Miami had to pick up for me. Thanks, Bri. I really like these colors. It's based off of an old foreign exclusive, I think from Argentina. And, I love having these little oddities in my collection, but not Toy of the Year. Here we've got Cobra Commander. This is a repaint of a figure that I've showed you twice already. So version 1 came out in 2021. Then they repainted version 2 in darker colors, which I eliminated in an earlier video. And I really like the look of him in the glow in the dark. But again, I've got this figure twice already. The glow in the dark feature isn't enough to bump it onto the top of my list. I would say the same of these guys here. So there's the G.I. Joe Trooper, or Green Shirt, if you will, Baroness, and Scarlet. Those are all repaints of Wave 1 figure in glow-in-the-dark. Again, really fun glow-in-the-dark feature, but not Toys of the Year. So there is still one glow-in-the-dark G.I. Joe left, and that is the Cobra Trooper. Him I'm not so quick to eliminate. I think he looks really cool in these colors. I'm a sucker for the Cobra blue shirts. They made my list last year in the classified scale, and the reaction figure almost made it as well, but I decided to cut the Cobra Trooper reaction figure because the 6-inch version was getting through. But again, I really like this trooper, and the fact that he's in this new color scheme just kind of breathes some new life into the mold. It's really fun. Now, beside him, we've got another Target exclusive. Actually, we've got two Target exclusives. The Red Ninja from G.I. Joe, and then the purple reformatting Megatron. Again, my brother had to come through on those ones, so he picked those up for me. You know, I'm up in Canada, so I don't get all these Target exclusives, Walgreens either. So thankfully, I've got a brother in the States. But anyway, cool figures, but they are not Toy of the Year. What else we got here? Now, I previously showed you my Godzilla 5 points figures from Mezco. Now, they were followed very quickly by these Godzilla reaction figures from Super 7. So Wave 1 had two different Godzillas, Jet Jaguar, Mechagodzilla, Mothra, and Rodan is kind of hiding back there if you can see him. The chicken guy. Anyway, and then shortly after Wave 1 came out, we got three of them in glow-in-the-dark variations. So there's glow-in-the-dark Mechagodzilla, glow-in-the-dark Godzilla, and glow-in-the-dark Jet Jaguar. Now, I'm going to start by eliminating the glow-in-the-dark ones. They're all kind of neat. You know, I wouldn't have bought them otherwise if they weren't neat, but they just, I don't think they're better than the original colors. So let me just let you get a closer look at them here. So Jet Jaguar, Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, really cool, but they're all going to go. So then what about the non-glowing versions? So the Godzillas, they're a little too simple looking. I don't know. Plus the fact that these two figures came out in Wave 1, and these are Godzilla from, like, I think it's 54 and 57 or something. They represent the first two Godzilla movies. And, you know, they're fun little figures, simple little designs. But the fact that you get two of them in the same wave, and there's very few differences. One of them has 4 toes, one of them has 3. The head sculpts are a little bit different. But anyway, it's just a little bit of overkill and kind of sucks, you know, the originality out of it. So anyway, both of those guys are getting the boot. Mothra, you know, nice figure for what Mothra is, but a moth is not going to make my best of the year list. So sorry, Mothra, but you got to go. Mechagodzilla, he's a lot of fun. This one's a little unstable. I find it's a little harder to get him to stand upright. Looks cool, but I wish he was in a more like a silver metallic color. This is kind of a flat gray, and I don't think it looks, you know, as good as it could had it been painted in nice silver. Like more like the colors of Jet Jaguar over there. So anyway, Mechagodzilla, he's gonna go. Jet Jaguar, I don't know. This is a cool character. This is a character I've wanted for a long time. Like, I've had Godzilla figures over the years from various companies, but very few companies that make Godzilla figures have had the rights to do the other Toho monsters. I have a handful of them. Like, I have other Mechagodzillas. I have Gigan. I have King Kong, but, you know, I don't have Jet Jaguar, or I never did until this year, and I've always wanted one. He's really cool. You know, he's a very kind of corny looking robot. If this was, like, say, an Ultimates figure in the 6 or 7 inch scale, I think this guy would make it through my list. But he's just, I don't know. He's a little simple. A lot of fun. But I think Jet Jaguar has to go. Now, these next two figures, these are unfortunately automatic disqualifications because they were released last year. This is General Spidrax from Zika Toys Sectars line. And I love this line. These guys are really cool. I already had this figure with purple armor instead of black. And so I didn't buy this black version when it first came out last year because I didn't think I needed it. But as the months ticked by, I was like, you know what? I kind of regret not buying that black version of General Spidrax because he's so awesome. He has an interchangeable head, interchangeable parts, all kinds of weapons. So I bought him. I'm glad I did. I think he looks really great in black. But like I said, he was a 2021 release, so he doesn't qualify for this list. This figure here, this is a figure of Daredevil, or the death-defying devil, if you will. This is like an old-timey hero who is now in the public domain, and Dynamite publishes comic books featuring him because they don't want to use the name Daredevil, because I guess that's, trademarked by Marvel now for their Daredevil character. And this figure is done. It's from a toy line called, I think, Amazing Heroes, and it was a bunch of pulpy old heroes included in there. And they're done in kind of that old super, like Secret Wars or Superpowers type of style, like 80s superhero figures. And I think this guy looks great. He's very simple. But anyway, I passed on all these figures when they first came out. But I picked this figure up earlier this year when he was on sale for 75% off. So I got him for like $7. Great deal. If you could find these figures for that cheap, I'd say grab them. But again, he's disqualified because he is maybe even earlier than 2021. It could have come out in 2020. But he wouldn't have made the list probably anyway. It's a cool figure, but not that cool. Now, this is a black Spider-Man figure from Hasbro's Marvel Legends Retro Wave, or the little 5-point figures. Now, he looks great. This is a really cool looking black and white Spider-Man. However, if you watched my other videos in this series, you know that there was a really nice black and white Spider-Man that came out in the 6-inch Marvel Legends scale, and that one has already progressed onto the next round. So that figure is definitely better than this one. So yeah, I think I'll let that guy fight the fight, and this guy can go. Now we have another Godzilla reaction figure. This here is, I forget the name of it, but he's a translucent orange. He's based on the old Shogun Godzilla toy, so that's why he looks kind of silly. He's fun. I have this figure in 3 different colors now. I have the standard green one, I have the glow-in-the-dark one. Both of them came out last year. And then I have this orange translucent one from this year. I really like the mold, it's a lot of fun. But it's not my Godzilla. I didn't grow up in the 70s. I didn't have a Shogun Godzilla when I was a kid. So I don't have that attachment to this mold that some people do. So it's neat, but it is not Toy of the Year. Alright, so let's zoom out a little bit here. So we got rid of most of the small guys pretty quick. Over here, I've got a couple of Funko Pops. These are Billy Joe and Mike Dirnt from Green Day. I was happy to get these figures because I got Trey Cool, the drummer, last year. And I had these figures on pre-order forever. But I think it was because of the all the COVID issues that these guys get delayed for some reason. So my pre-order took forever to go through. So I was able to get these figures this year finally, but they were originally released in 2021 when I got Trey. So, these guys wouldn't have made my best of list anyway, but they are automatically eliminated. All right, we're moving quick here. So we're going to keep Cobra Trooper around. I'm going to move him over here for the time being. Rodan, I almost missed him because he was hiding. But again, this is from Godzilla reaction figures from Super 7. He's fun, but Rodan is probably my least favorite of the Toho monsters. So yeah, he's going to go as well. Alright, I've got another couple of forced eliminations here. Hopefully these are the last ones, but this is Circe from the Eternals movie. So I know a lot of people hated on that movie. I quite enjoyed it. It was definitely not Marvel's best, and it wasn't how I would have made an Eternals movie. I actually do like the Eternals characters, but still, I thought it was a pretty decent movie. But I didn't feel the need to rush out and buy these figures at full price. I got Circe this year when she was on sale, but she was released in 2021, so she is gone. And I think the last one of those that I have is there's a couple of G.I. Joes hiding back here. One of them is the Cobra Trooper. So you see I've got a Cobra Officer here and a Cobra Trooper. Now this Cobra Trooper, the one specific with the goggles that go over his eyes and the black vest, because the standard release had a navy blue vest. Anyway, this figure here was a Target exclusive, and that first wave of Target exclusives was really hard to get. And I had to get this guy on the secondary market. It took me a while to get him for a decent price. So this was a 2021 release, and I got him this year. I'm glad I did, but he's automatically out. Okay, I think that's all the automatic eliminations. I think everybody else here is a 2022 release. All right, Might as well talk about these Masters of the Universe characters. There's not too many of them in this video. We went through most of them already. So this is Leech. Leech is great. The body is a lot like the vintage Leech figure that I had growing up. But what's really cool about this figure is they gave him 2 heads. So he's got this, this head, which is much more, I don't know, a believable looking head for a Leech creature. But then they also gave him his suction cup head, which is, based off of the vintage figure. And the suction cup head actually allows him to stick to windows and all that sort of stuff. And I loved that figure, even though his head was goofy when I was a kid. So I'm glad they included it, but I really like they gave us this alternate head too. So double heads, and his head, it's not only just his head, but also his hands and his feet. They're real suction cups. So you can see he's stuck to that desk pretty good. You need these little tabs to lift them up. So you know what? I think he'll stick around. I don't know if he'll make Toy of the Year because, I don't know if he brings enough new to the table. Even though he's got that new head, we've already seen that head on the Classics figure from a few years back. So it's cool to have both heads this time. But yeah, anyway, we'll see. And then there's Snout Spout. He's a character that also has 2 heads, which is kind of cool. So this one is based on the more like vintage action figure. And then he had another head that was a little bit more like contemporary, and one of them actually had the original feature of the toy that allowed you to squirt water out of his nose, while the other one doesn't. And so it's a neat figure. I think it does a good job of recreating that vintage Snout Spout, but he's not a character that I have any real fondness for, and he's kind of goofy. So anyway, Snout Spout is going to go. Now let's talk about this guy here. I forget the company that made this figure, but this is the Death Dealer, based off of Frank Frazetta's artwork. And then the character was later kind of given a bit of a backstory in various novels and comic books. I'm very familiar with the look of this character. I've seen some of those famous Death Dealer images my whole life. But it was really just this year that I started collecting the new Death Dealer comic book. And I kind of became like a fan of the character. So it was perfect timing that this little company was putting out a Death Dealer action figure. So I was pretty stoked to get this guy. And this is probably one of the biggest disappointments of the year for me. Like, he might look all right, but he's an awkward scale. Like, you see, he's not big enough to really hang with these guys. And he's too big to like hang with these guys. So he doesn't really fit in anywhere in my collection. Plus his skirt piece, it's so tight that that's about as far as his legs can go apart. Like, so it makes him very hard to pose dynamically. His weapons are all really like soft and bendy. It's there was just too many strikes against this figure. I was really disappointed. Plus he was kind of expensive for what he is. So Death Dealer, he's gonna go. So now let's take a look at the Marvel Legends. These are all pretty cool figures. Siren. So this is a figure I've wanted for a long time. She would have made my list of most wanted characters. However, in past videos I talked about Sleepwalker and Speedball. Those guys would have been really high up on my list. Siren, I wanted her, but she would have probably ranked, around the 50 of my top 100 or something. She's not as vital a character to me, although I am happy to add her. And it's a good figure. I don't really have any complaints about it. I don't know, her head was a little different. I'm not sure what it is I don't like about the head. Part of me almost feels like she should have like a screaming expression because her power is screaming. But at the same time, if she had a screaming head, I'd probably be complaining that I wished she had a more neutral head. Typically, I prefer neutral faces, but I don't know. This head in particular just looks particularly dead-eyed and kind of disinterested. So, I don't know. She just looks a little too chill. Plus, I don't know if this is the best way to accomplish her like soft goods cape. It's a little weird. So, anyway, I'm glad I got Siren, and it's an okay figure, but it is not a best of the year. U.S. Agent, this is a really cool figure. I got a MCU version of U.S. Agent, I think just last year, maybe the year before, and it was decent, but I really wanted a comic version. It's been quite a while since we've gotten one of those, and I think this guy's great. Great expression on his face. He's got a shield there as an accessory. It's a good build for him. But he's just not a character that I get that excited about. So, yeah, U.S. Agent, he's going to go. And then moving on to Quake. This is a cool figure. She's maybe not a super well-known character. At least I wouldn't think she is, but she was, if I understand correctly, the star of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show, which I never really got into. But I know this character from the comic book Secret Warriors that she was in. And I really liked that comic book. So, yeah, this is the kind of character that I could have faded into obscurity because her comic book was short-lived. And anyway, I was just happy to get her. I hope we get more of the Secret Warriors characters, but she was definitely the most important one. And what's really cool about this figure is you see she's got these like metal gauntlets. You can remove those metal gauntlets and give her standard white gloves. And you can also change out her head, and you can give her a Maria Hill's head. So you can turn this into a completely different S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who's also just as important a character. So very cool. I'm not sure why the camera doesn't seem to want to focus on her. I keep getting the guys in the background. But anyway, she's cool, but she's not cool enough to stick around. Although I really like the fact that you can do two different characters with her. I almost bought this figure twice this year, but yeah, until figures, maybe when they go on sale, I'll buy another one of her. But right now, action figures are a little pricey, so I'm not going to be buying two. And then we've got Iron Man. Now, this is a cool Iron Man, but it's not my Iron Man. I'm more a sucker for the classic look. If you watched my first video in the series, I think I had, a classic Iron Man in here. That's the Iron Man I like from the 80s. So, while I can appreciate how cool this guy is, and he poses well and all that sort of stuff, it's just not my Iron Man. And there's too many other cool figures for him to compete with this year, so I'm going to have to give him the boot as well. All right, so let's talk about some of these G.I. Joes here. G.I. Joe Classified, which is the new 6-inch line from Hasbro. I love this toy line. It is my favorite thing to collect right now. And there weren't very many of these guys in my first few videos because it seems like most of the G.I. Joe releases came in the later half of this year, and those are the figures I'm covering now. So these figures have all been pretty awesome. Although, if I'm going to eliminate anybody, this just tells you how good these figures are, because I think I'm going to eliminate Storm Shadow. Now, this is a great figure. Like, everything from the expression on his face, to all the little details, all the little weapons. He's got the bow and arrow. The bow clips onto the backpack. He's got double sheaths for his swords. Really cool. I like him a lot. It looks like Storm Shadow. It looks like classic Storm Shadow. It's just partly because, like Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow is just a character I've gotten so many times. Whether it's, the vintage line or the more modern line or even Funko Pops or something. These guys just get made all the time. In the classified line, I already have Arctic Storm Shadow, and I already have the movie Storm Shadow. And there's already another Storm Shadow coming, which is basically the same figure, except even more true to the vintage toy. So he's got like bare hands with bandages on his forearms rather than these kind of like gauntleted hands. So just some slight minor changes, but they're good changes. So knowing that this figure is already, being improved upon, it's just I'm not as excited to get this. There's no shortage of Storm Shadow figures out there. Now, there's the Cobra Officer. Now, this guy's awesome. And he could very well he could advance. I'm thinking about cutting him just because the Cobra Trooper made my list last year. But if I can bring the Cobra Trooper out for a sec. Like, there they are comparatively. I thought that when Hasbro announced that we were getting the Cobra Officer, they would just take this exact figure and give him like a silver emblem and maybe a little triangle on his helmet, because that is how the officers usually look. They're the same as the troopers, just with the different color and the triangle. So he's got the silver emblem and he's got the triangle on his helmet. But you can see they're completely different as far as the web gear goes. Like, the vests are different. The boots are different. The gloves are different. Like, Hasbro really went out of their way to make the officer a unique figure. and not just be a repaint of the trooper, which they very easily could have done. So, you know what? I'm going to let him live to fight another day. I'm going to put him over here with the other guys that we're thinking about. But with some of these other guys, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. This is Spirit and his Eagle Freedom. This figure is awesome. It's the best that Spirit has ever looked. I absolutely love it. I'm not going to talk about him too much because I'll talk about him more, in the next round where he clearly belongs. So we'll put him... I don't really have a spot to put the locks, but he's a lock. Another lock, Crocmaster. This guy is amazing. It looks, a lot like the vintage figure, except it just improves on it in every way. I wish he stood up a little bit better right now, but yeah, look at him. He's got that evil expression on his face, that scowl with the breathing hose, that texture of crocodile skin on his vest, that big meat hook, the crocodile eyeball on his belt buckle, the whip. Like, this figure, just as it is, would be enough to get into the next round. And I can almost guarantee you he's going to make my best of list. I don't know where he'll rank on there, but he's going to be on there. But besides just being an awesome figure, he came with this thing, which is an awesome crocodile. And look at the size of this thing. The vintage Crocmaster figure came with this cutesy little plastic crocodile that looked like he had a baby crocodile with him. But this guy's got a big, massive, man-eating crocodile as just like a bonus accessory. Plus, he also comes with little baby crocodiles, which I've got stored in the mouth. So you've got basically like 4 little characters in this set. And they all look great. Like, the crocodile is articulated in multiple spots. Like, not only does his jaw open and close, but you can see he's got articulation throughout the body and on the legs and on the ankles. The tail, it's a wire tail, so you can move that around. So cool. The crocodile alone might have made my best of list. But you combine him with these two guys, and this guy is definitely a lock. So, Crocmaster is good to go. And I think that was it for G.I. Joes. Well, there is one more back there. So maybe... Well, I'll get her. Once I get to the back row, I'll talk about that Baroness back there. You can see I do have a few carded figures in the back row. I don't usually keep my action figures carded, but every now and again I do. So yeah, I've got a few of them to talk about. But next up, maybe we'll talk about these Action Force guys. So my first wave of Action Force figures I got at the very end of 2021. Then in this year, I got Wave 2, and Wave 2 was split up into Wave 2A and Wave 2B, which were released a few months apart. So I think it was in just my last video where I looked at the figures from Wave 2A, and the Scarab figure made it through to the next round. So now we've got Wave 2B, which consists of Trigger, this dude here with the beard. Then we've got the Night Ops Steel Brigade. We've got the Garrison Cavalry Trooper, and we've got the Delta Trooper. Now, the Delta Trooper is a basic figure, so you buy them and they're cheaper than the standard figures. I forget exactly how much these guys cost, but let's just say these guys are about $35. This guy's about $25, but he doesn't come with really any accessories. All he comes with is interchangeable hands, and he has an interchangeable head, which is really cool. All of Bobby Vala's figures come with at least the trooper figures come with an alternate head, so you could make this guy either a white guy or an African American guy. They both have the same head, it's just a different paint job like around their eyes. So that's really cool that you can choose that. And then you can buy accessory sets to give these guys like vests and holsters on their legs and all that sort of stuff. So there was a Delta weapon set available to buy with this guy. I opted not to buy it because I have so many like spare accessories already kicking around. I didn't really feel the need. So this guy's cool, but he's the exact same as all the other trooper types we've got already. So I already have a basic trooper in black, in blue, and gray camo. So this is the 4th of these. There's another one that just came out in like desert camo. So there's going to be no shortage of these troopers as the Action Force line goes on. And it's a little bit of a been there, done that feeling with this guy now, so he is not going to go on. Same as the Steel Brigade. I think he looks really cool in these colors. I'm a big fan of the Action Force Steel Brigade troopers. I bought multiple ones of the Wave 1 figure, and I bought this figure twice. So I have two identical Night Ops Steel Brigade. I really dig them, but the fact of the matter is this is just a repaint of the figure we got last year. And as much as it pained me to do so, I had to eliminate the original Steel Brigade Trooper from my list last year, and I still think that paint job is superior to this one. So yeah, I really just don't see this guy advancing if the last one couldn't make the cut. So we're going to get rid of him. And so that just leaves Trigger and the Garrison Trooper. Now the Garrison Trooper is really cool. All reused parts, from the neck down. We've seen this vest and everything on other characters before. All these weapons we've seen before. But I really dig this helmet. This is new. So underneath this helmet, he's just got the same mast head that we saw on like the Delta Trooper. Except he's got this like medieval knight's helmet that fits him pretty well, and you can see his eyes right through there when you get it lined up properly, which I think I just screwed up. But oh, there he goes. I had it, lost it. Anyway, really cool. I dig it. But I don't know. He might just be a little too, as a trooper, with all these reused parts, may feel a little bit been there, done that for me already. And it's also just, I have so many other awesome figures to talk about. Like, realistically, I've got these guys here, plus I've got another like 30 figures that have already made it through from the last couple of videos. I just don't see the Garrison Trooper making it through to the end. So I'm going to cut him. That leaves just Trigger. And I think Trigger is going to go through. And I won't say I'm surprised now, but I am surprised from earlier in the year, because I wasn't even going to buy this figure. Like, he's well made, he's well sculpted. I just prefer, I like G.I. Joe because there's a bit of a fantastical element to them. Like, look at these guys. Like, sure, it's a military line, but you've got a guy with an eagle and a guy with a crocodile, and then you've got this crazy trooper guy. This is just too real-world military, which doesn't really excite me. So I was going to pass on this character, but I decided, well, what the hell, I'm buying all the other guys, I'll buy him. And he just surprised the heck out of me at how cool he was and how much fun he was to pose and play with. So, yeah, Trigger's definitely going to go through the next round. He's good stuff. All right, so what else we got? So this line here, these are Mythic Legions. So there was essentially kind of two waves of Mythic Legions released this year. It was technically all one wave called Ilithia, I think, but it was split into two factions. So there was vampire characters, and then there was a bunch of, I don't know, woodland-based elven characters, maybe. I didn't care about those elven characters. I went with the vampire side of things, and I bought all of the vampire figures, and they are all super cool. But maybe before we talk about them, there's one odd man out just kind of hiding in here. This is Ghostmaker. This is a Batman character. Not really a villain. I think he was kind of introduced as a potential new Batman villain, but he quickly became a friend of Batman in the comic books. I don't know a whole lot about this guy. I haven't read the Batman comic books that feature him yet. He's a brand new character. But I think McFarlane knocked it out of the park when they designed this figure. Like, I love that helmet. It's super cool. Kind of creepy without any eyes or anything on it. The suit looks really cool. And these pants, they're so bizarre, but they're sculpted so well with that pattern on them. Just a really cool figure. I'd actually forgot about this figure. In my last video, or my second to last video, I said Swamp Thing was my only DC Multiverse figure this year. Yeah, so I kind of forgot about Ghostmaker, but I shouldn't have, because he is not a forgettable figure. He's very cool. I like him a lot. He's going to go through to the next round. So why don't I bring these Mythic Legions up a little bit closer. So here are my Mythic Legions Ilithia figures. All 5 of them, or all 6 if you want to count the horse separate from the rider, which I suppose you could. Both of those figures were available separately, but I bought them as a box set together. So for that reason, just like Crocmaster and his crocodile, I feel I can lump them together into one category. So if one makes it through, they're both going to make it through. Maybe that's a cheat, but I don't know. Anyway, these are all amazing figures, except their names are very hard to remember. I pulled up a little cheat sheet here so I can tell you what their names are. So the little dude here with the wings, this is Varg. Then the big ogre-sized guy, this is Decibolus or Decabolus, I don't know. Then we've got Baron Voligar II, which is this dude here. And then we've got Valak. And then that is Ilithia herself on top of the horse. And then the horse is Phobos. Okay, so I love this dude. This is a really cool figure. Like, look at the detail there on his evil little face. And then he's all ripped, all muscly and veiny. And then he's got real chains on his weapons. You know, the weapons are tied to his hands there. He's got those really big wings for such a little guy. It's and the wings are articulated, so you could spread them out even farther than how I have them there now. They cover a lot of ground. He's awesome. He takes up too much room on my desk right now, but yeah, this guy's getting through for sure. Really cool. Where can I put? I'll stuff him over here. All right, these guys. Now, these guys are both incredible. Like, if you get down here and see the details, like, look at all this stuff on the Baron. Like, on his shoulder pads here, you've got all these, like, snakes and dragon skeletons, and there's just so much going on with these guys. You can see he's got multiple layers of soft goods. There he's got his Queen Ilithia's face on his armor. So he's got this like fur collar here, and then the purple cape. It's all just great. A lot of detail on his face with that big scar all the way through it. But this guy and this guy, I think I'm going to have to eliminate, as great as they are. Partly because like I just can't push them all through. I can't have a whole list that's all just Mythic Legions. They're all great, but I find these two guys, there's almost so much going on with them, they're difficult to handle. Like this guy, if I pick him up and move him around, you know, he's dropping his bow and arrow, or the burr is falling off of his arm. And look at that, the little bird is like a little hood on his head and everything. Just really cool figures. You know, I could go on and on about the detail and everything. They also have good articulation and all that stuff. But yeah, I think the other guys all have a better chance, so I'm going to get rid of these two. So both of these figures are awesome. Like this guy here, I love the ogre scale figures. So they just kind of tower over the other figures. They're about 9 inches tall. You see here, he's got this like leathery, wired cape. And you can, so since it's wired, you can pose that. Same as these little bits that dangle in the front. They're wired. So you can pose them and they'll hold their pose. He's got those big, crazy boots. The spikes, like again, so much detail on these guys. This guy is mostly reused parts. We've already seen this on some of the prior ogre figures, except this is the first ogre scale vampire we have. So he's got that new vampire head. And yeah, this was probably the one I was most excited about when I ordered this wave. I think I ended up liking this little dude the most, but I still like this guy enough that I'm not ready to cut him just yet. And now here's a closer look at Ilithia. Again, this figure is just beautiful. Like, look at that face sculpt and that head sculpt. There's just so much going on with this headdress. It's like a little skeleton dude with some scales in his hands. And she's got those braids. And then look at these extra hands that come off her back, and they've got chains with scales on them. She's holding these swords here. There's just so much going on. Then she's got soft goods as well on her skirt piece. And she's got this cloth belt that's also wired, so you can pose that. And then you've got the horse. And like, look at this thing. He's got all kinds of crazy details sculpted on him as well. This like dragon head on him. And then look at the face on this guy. He's like a dead horse or something. It's like half skull. It's a little unclear exactly. And they also came with extra parts and stuff that I don't even have on display here. But it's just so impressive. The only reason I would maybe not push this figure through is because I got another rider and horse from Mythic Legions last year, and they were very high on my list. I think they were ranked number 3. And I think that horse was even more impressive than this one. The rider, I'm not sure. I think this rider might be more impressive just given all of her parts and all of her chains. But the problem I have with her is that she does feel a little too delicate. She's kind of like the other two guys that I eliminated. If I pick her up, those extra arms are going to fall off her back, or she's going to drop her weapons. Like, she almost just works as a statue that I can just kind of put in my glass display case and admire her from afar, which, you know, she's great for that. But as an action figure, I like to be able to pick them up and fiddle around with them and stuff. And she's not very fiddleable. So, anyway. She's also just too cool for me to brush aside too quickly. So maybe we'll keep her around, at least until we've had a chance to address these guys. So you see here I've got some McFarlane Superpower figures. So these are recreations, mostly recreations of the 80s Superpower figures from Kenner. And I love this line. I'm way more into this line than I am the standard multiverse stuff that McFarlane's putting out. I have some issues with those proportions on a lot of those figures, but these guys here I think are great, and they just hit that like perfect nostalgia button with the packaging and the figure itself. Like, I love this Superman. Like, it's simple with just those blue dots for eyes. You know, there's no like wrinkles in his costume or anything. He's just like straightforward 80s action figure goodness. He's got the cloth cape with the little yellow Superman logo on the back of the cape. I love it. And the thing is, with this line here, I think the packaging is such a part of the appeal. Plus, they don't really fit in with other collections I have because they are a little bit of an awkward size. They're not 3 3/4 inches like G.I. Joe's, and they're not 6 inches like pretty much every other figure in my collection. So I decided to keep them carded. That way I could just display them on the wall and still admire them, whereas they would probably get lost if I tried to stick them on one of my shelves with my 6-inch figures. And for that reason, I don't think any of them are going to make the list just because I haven't had a chance to actually take them out and enjoy them. And it's very hard to put a figure that's still carded on my best of the year list. However, if I opened these up, I'm quite certain Superman would have gone through because he's my favorite of the bunch here. The Batman is cool as well, but they changed him up a little bit from the retro Superpowers one. They decided to make this guy darker colors, which I'm not opposed to it, but it just doesn't bring me the same nostalgic joy that Superman does. And then even more so with Darkseid, they decided to go with a contemporary look for Darkseid as opposed to his like more 80s vintage look that the original Superpowers figure had. So I'm not opposed to them doing this, but I would prefer they make a classic 80s Darkseid for me to enjoy as well. But yeah, unfortunately, Superman, you're not going to make the list. It's my fault because I didn't open you, but you're an awesome figure. Great stuff. And so then I've got these two carded figures. So Baroness, I think she's awesome. But Baroness was on my list last year, and she ranked very highly on my list. I can't remember how high I put this figure up, but it was in like my top 5, I'm pretty sure. And she's awesome. I love this figure. And I didn't see it as a negative, but the fact that she's got that gold bit on her glasses there. And Baroness is typically all black. You see this outfit has some gray bits throughout. So I didn't mind it at all, but if they had went with all black, which is what we're more used to seeing on Baroness, I think it would have been an improvement. And so this year, that's what we got. It's the same figure, but all in black. There's no more of the gray. And her glasses, which you can see they are displayed there in the packaging, those are all black. They don't have the little gold cat eyes like the other one did. So I think this Baroness, had I opened her up, would be superior to this one. And I'm not keeping her carded for any particular reason. The card is pretty damaged. You see there's a pretty big fold at the top there. So it's not even a really good display piece. But at this point in time, I just think these figures are too similar. Like, sure, she's an improvement, but it's not different enough for me to really display both these two figures standing beside each other in the collection. So I'm fine with just keeping this one on display. And I don't know, with this new one here, I might eventually open her up, put her on the shelf, or maybe I'll pin her up to the wall in the packaging because, you know, the artwork is nice and everything on the card. But, so yeah, I'm not knocking this figure at all. She was on my best of last year. This is essentially the exact same figure, but it's not different enough to qualify for this year's list. Now, this figure here of Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, depending on your taste, you might get, you know, we'll get different mileage out of this figure, I guess. I never would have thought that this Obi-Wan figure, like this mold, would have made my best of list. But I love this figure. Like this Ben Kenobi was originally released in the Black Series several years ago in like movie accurate colors, which were like tans, and he had a cloth robe, you know, much more screen accurate. But then this figure came out this year on this old retro style card. And the reason he's wearing those like kind of bright orange colors, and he's even got like a kind of a cheap looking vinyl cape, is because he is supposed to look like the old Kenner Star Wars figure that I would have had when I was a kid. And there's something about seeing a well-sculpted modern figure in those retro colors from the 80s that, I don't know, it just makes me so happy. I think he looks so cool. Yeah, but again, he could have possibly even gone through despite the fact that he's carded. I just think this figure is so great looking. But he is carded. I haven't had a chance to really handle him and enjoy him. And, you know, it is still Obi-Wan as an old man, which is not super exciting for me. You know, I'm really glad I own this, that they put it out, but I don't think it's going to make my list. So why don't we get rid of him, and then we can go back and focus on these guys and make sure I've got my final picks. Okay, so here are the figures that I'm left with. I don't really have a set rule about how many figures I'm trying to whittle each of these videos down to. I had kind of opted for 10 because I'm planning on doing 6 videos to whittle my 360 figures down to approximately 60 so I can do a final best of video. So yeah, 10 from each video would work out perfectly, which is exactly what I've arrived at here. I've got 10 figures here. It might look like more than that, but that's because I'm counting Crocmaster and his Crocodile Fiona as one figure, and I'm also counting Ilithia and Phobos as one figure. However, so even though that would be the easy way out to just say you 10 can advance, I think I'm going to cut Leech. I think you can tell when like he's fun and all, but like he looks outclassed when you see him next to these other figures. He looks out of place. So yeah, Leech is going to go. And I think the Cobra Trooper reaction figure, it's a really tough cut. It might not seem like it because he also is obviously way outclassed in detail and sculpting and everything. But I really, really like that color scheme. I really, really like the Cobra Blue shirt. The 2 figures that I'm thinking about cutting are him and the other Cobra officer. And again, the officer is great, but I think Spirit and Crocmaster they definitely have a better chance of advancing beyond him. Plus, I've already pushed through the Cobra Bat and the Cobra Alley Viper. They have a better chance of going forward than the officer. And I still have more G.I. Joes to come in my future videos. So I think, you know, I'm not going to have a list of all G.I. Joes. I think there's definitely going to be a few G.I. Joes on there, but I just don't think Cobra Officer has what it takes to make it through the end. So he's going to go. So that leaves me with 8. Am I content with this 8? I wasn't really thinking I would push all 3 vampires through. It's just, which one could I possibly cut? Like, he's too awesome. He's too awesome. She's too awesome. The only thing kind of making me think with her is just because she is so kind of fragile. She's got so many little bits and pieces. But man, she looks awesome. The other thing to consider is I have another Mythic Legions horse coming probably in my next video. And I think that figure and their horse is pretty likely to advance too. So am I going to put 2 Mythic Legions horses through? Anyway, whatever. I don't have to make this decision now. I know my final video is going to be that much harder as I push all these characters through, but I think I'm going to let all these guys advance, including the little Cobra Trooper. So there you go. This is my final pick from this video. So that's it. Another round done. Another group of 60 figures whittled down to, what did I end up with? 8, I think. So yeah, we're that much closer. I think I've got 2 more of these videos to do, and then we'll be down to approximately my final 60 figures that I can whittle down to my best of the year. I hope you're enjoying these. It seems that people are. My views are doing pretty good, even though I'm posting. I keep telling myself I'm going to wait a couple of days and space these out, but I'm having so much fun shooting them and editing them. I can't sit on it once it's done. I'm like, I'm just going to post it, whatever. You don't have to watch it the day it comes out. Maybe you need to space these out. That would make total sense to me. I don't expect you to sit and watch me for hours at a time, but I'm hoping you're enjoying these videos. You've got till the end of the year before I really wrap this up. So yeah, please come back for the next one and the one after that. And definitely come back for my best of the year list, which I'll be posting, at the end of the year. So if you enjoyed this, please make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and come back next time. Until then, have a good one. Ciao.